Okay, guys, remember our first unit was citizenship all the way back in September. That was the idea of immigration, how to become a citizen, the First Amendment, the duties, and the responsibilities that you have as a citizen. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with 3A, which is how do you become a citizen, or naturalization. Remember that. Okay, the first rule to being a citizen is just being born on U.S. soil, territory, anywhere else like that. As long as you were born within the U.S., you are automatically a citizen. Or if you're born outside of the U.S., but at least one of your parents is a citizen, it's automatic. So it doesn't matter where, as long as one American is one of your parents, okay? Now, let's say you weren't born in this country. You got to go through the naturalization process, which is just the legal process that a person has to go through in order to become a U.S. citizen. Takes some time, and usually it's anywhere between 5 years or 3 years. Remember that. 5 years if you don't marry anyone, but 3 years if someone falls in love with you and they are a U.S. citizen and they decide to marry you. Okay, now to start the process, you usually have to be 18 and have a job in order to be able to show the country that you're able to support yourself. That's usually what they want to start with. You also have to speak English. Now, it's basic English. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be writing at a level of an adult who's been here their whole life, but they want you to be able to read, write, and speak basic English. Then you have to take the naturalization test. The naturalization test is knowing history and government. And if you can pass that test, you become a citizen. Now, you have all the same rights as anyone else born naturally in this country. Unfortunately, naturalized citizens can't run for president or vice president. All right, next we have the First Amendment. The idea of the First Amendment is these are your 5 freedoms that are guaranteed to you by the government, and they are protected from the government abusing your freedoms. The first freedom is freedom of religion, the idea that you're allowed to believe whatever religion you want in this country. The government cannot make laws that would violate your religion. The government cannot write a law that would force you to believe one thing over the other. The government also can't force you through law to do something that goes against your faith. The idea of freedom of religion has been practiced since pretty much the beginning of this country. Okay, so freedom of speech is probably the most important one. It's the idea that you are free to express your thoughts without fear. You can say whatever you want without fear. The government will not stop you from expressing your thoughts. Think of Martin Luther King. If he'd been stopped from saying his I have a dream speech, he would never have got his message out as easily. The government will not stop you. Now, you make a threat, you say fire in a movie theater, you lead someone to be possibly hurt, you could be arrested because there are consequences for your speech. Like hate speech. It's not a crime. You can say it no matter how disgusting or vile it is, but you will face consequences. You might lose your job. You might be ousted on social. So freedom of the press means you have the right to publish your thoughts. You can gather information. You can put it out there to the world. Even if the government doesn't like it, as long as you're telling the truth, you're pretty well safe. So like going on to like news or radio, video, newspapers itself, you can print stories about the U.S. government. You can print stories about anything. Now, the government doesn't have to like it. So for instance, the United States, I doubt Trump likes all of the negative press he gets. But he can't stop it because that is your freedom of press. Now, some governments do block it. Luckily, the U.S. doesn't try to. Other examples are social media, blogs, podcasts. These are all examples of media that you can do. Okay, the right to gather peacefully is called assembly. If you want to protest the government, you want to gather with your friends to make your voices known. That is absolutely allowed. Think of throughout history, every time Americans have got together to protest to the government or protest something they believe strongly in. This is okay, and the government will not stop it as long as it stays peaceful. If your march or your demonstration is peaceful, that is 100% allowed through freedom of assembly because the government will not stop you from gathering together. Okay, finally, freedom of petition means you have the right to write to the government. You have a right to make your view known, so the government can't ignore you talking to them. So if you send a tweet or you write a letter or you send an email or you go door to door asking people, the point of the government is to listen to your voice. And all of these freedoms make up the First Amendment, and they're super important. Remember at the beginning of the year when I asked you to try and eliminate 1 or 2 or 3 of them and how hard it was? It's because these amendments bounce off each other. You need to have all 5 in order for the First Amendment to guarantee the freedoms that you have. And the last idea of our unit are the idea of the differences between civic duties and civic responsibilities. Remember, civic duties are things that you have to do or there are legal consequences. Civic responsibilities, that's voluntary. You do not have to do them if you do not want to, but you should. Okay, remember the basic idea of civic duties are these are things that the American government expects every American to do. These are not an option. You have to do them. And if we don't do them, society would probably fall apart. The first big one is the idea of paying your taxes. And you know how much I hate paying taxes. But paying taxes allows us to pay for all the public services and all the things that we need. So, for instance, like schools, hospitals, police, fire, post offices, the military, the roads that you drive on, the school that you're currently not in, all that stuff is paid for by taxes. Another duty you have is the idea that you must obey laws. Obeying laws is pretty much fundamental to our American society, and without obeying laws, it would fall apart, really. Think about all the people that run stop signs or stop using red lights and stuff like that. And not obeying laws will result in legal consequences like a ticket, jail, something. Okay, another one of your civic duties is the idea that you must serve in the military if you're needed. Now, I joined voluntarily because I decided that I wanted to serve my country. But if it's a time of war and if it's needed, men 18 and older could be drafted in order to serve this country and protect this country and guarantee the rights due to everybody else. You also must be a jury on a witness. So if you're called to jury duty, you got to decide whether a person's guilty or innocent after listening to the trial. If you see a crime, you do have to be a witness. These are both civic duties. You are required by law to do them. Civic responsibilities are a little bit differently. You do not have to do these civic responsibilities. They are fulfilled by your choice. They are voluntary. If you don't do them, society will continue because enough people do them. One of the biggest civic responsibilities that I think should be a duty is voting, but you don't have to vote. You do not have to have your voice known by actually voting. You don't have to run for office to make your voice known. You don't have to even complain to the government or write a letter or participate in local campaigns. You also don't have to serve in the government if you don't want to. You don't have to keep informed of issues, but if you debate me, I'm going to beat you. And you do not have to respect the rights of others, even though you absolutely should. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this video was the first of many while we were home for the coronavirus. Please watch and pay attention to learn.